Hey there, fellow CEOs. Welcome back to the Streamline CEO podcast. Today, we're actually going to be taking a little bit of a pivot, and it's going to continue over the next several weeks. And we're going to be focusing on my absolute favorite time-saving tool, ClickUp. Okay, and ClickUp isn't just a tool. I want to be clear here. It's actually a game changer for businesses of all sizes. Okay. So in today's episode, I'm actually going to be busting the myth that ClickUp is too complex. And if you're listening and you think ClickUp is too complex, I used to actually agree with you. So I've actually been on both sides. And so you may be thinking ClickUp is too complex, maybe because there's a steep learning curve. What software doesn't have a decent learning curve, right? You're not tech savvy. Wait, it can be taught. Anything can be taught. There's a complex layout. Anything can be, configured. There's too many customization options. Don't have to use them all. Or your business isn't large enough to utilize it. Okay. It works for businesses of all sizes. Okay. And if you think any of those things, however, right, if there's a steep learning curve, you're not tech savvy, maybe it's a complex layout, there's too many customization options, or your business isn't large enough to utilize it, you're certainly not alone in this thinking. Okay. And so a few years ago, it's story time. All right. I was exploring project management tools. And I'm going to be very honest, I tried over 40. Yes, 40 of them. And it was extremely exhausting, especially because I landed on the third one I tried. Yeah, ClickUp was the third one. 3, like a single digit one that I tried. Okay. So if you've tried ClickUp before and you can relate to this, you get in there with a blank slate. Yes, there's templates, but they are confusing. You try some things out, but it's just not working how you imagined. So after working with businesses of multiple sizes, with teams and also solopreneurs alike, there was one common denominator. They didn't understand the hierarchy. And honestly, that was my problem in the beginning as well. And the hierarchy is a foundational piece to ClickUp. So when you don't understand foundational pieces of software or an idea, anything in general, it feels super complex and confusing until you're able to break it down, right? So what happens? You actually end up saying that the tool itself is bad, right? That the tool doesn't work for you or your business, for example. Okay. So as soon as I actually understood the hierarchy of ClickUp, all right, that's when everything actually changed. So ClickUp was not near as complex as I had originally thought for 2 reasons, right? ClickUp comes with a frame. It's not starting completely from scratch like some project management tools I tried, like Notion. Now, let's be clear, I have nothing against Notion for the record. I just needed more framework. And it's kind of like Google Drive, but like with way more organizational function. So if you have learned how to use Google Drive, you can absolutely learn how to use ClickUp. All right. And so I'm going to break it down for you. All right. We're not going to leave you hanging, bite-sized operational pieces here. That's what the podcast is all about. So I'm going to break it down for you. You don't have to use every single feature that ClickUp has to offer for it to be beneficial to you. That's one reason why you may be thinking it's complex. No, you're not going to lose money by not utilizing it to its fullest potential, right? Because you're learning the foundational pieces and then you're building on them, right? So using it to its fullest potential comes with time. So you start small, and that's when you slowly, when I say slowly, it depends what your goals are, right? You start slowly building on it. So first, you're going to understand the hierarchy of ClickUp. I've said it at least 3 times now. You have to understand this. That's the most important piece. And I also even did you a solid here, and you can head on over to the Productivity Impact on YouTube. That's our YouTube channel. And I've made a video specifically for this, walking you through this. And depending on when you're actually listening to this episode, there's actually going to be a whole beginner series on understanding the basics of ClickUp. These are answering questions of things working with clients, like things that they have asked or things they don't understand, or in conversations, the most frequently asked questions. I'm going to be answering those to really get you a firm foundation to be able to start utilizing ClickUp. And so each tutorial actually focuses on these real use cases, and each is a small, very small aspect. Okay. It's like literally one focus. All right. And also, if you're like, hey, I just want to click on a link, you can also head to the show notes. There's a link down there to the YouTube channel, and you can go ahead and start watching those tutorials. And so while you're there, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of them. All right. And so continuing on here, though, but if you want like a real visual of me walking you through ClickUp, the YouTube channel is where you're going to want to head for now. but you gotta stay here too. Right? You gotta keep listening to the podcast. All right. So ClickUp only feels complex because what you're using it for is complex. And that is your business, right? We're using it for your business, and your business is complex, which means the amount of information that you need to put into it can be complex. And so the real use case is actually beyond the foundational pieces of ClickUp, okay? So that's the real reason that ClickUp is confusing and complex, is because your business is complex. And the more you know your business, the more you know what you want to track, the more you know, I'm going to walk through this in a very bite-sized steps here in just a second, the more you know about what you need to put in ClickUp to have it be useful to you and keep track of things, the more beneficial ClickUp is going to be right from the start, even if you're using the most basic features, okay? You can be on the free plan and it will be super beneficial to you, okay? And so the first thing that I want you to think about here in a real use case, right, is that for you, you're going to want to identify the core needs that you need ClickUp for, right? What are you using a project management tool for? What are you using an information storage tool for, right? What do you all need to have put together? So here's the 3 questions, well, 4 technically. What are the primary tasks and projects that you need to manage, right? Is it ensuring you check your email? Is it keeping track of podcasts episodes? Is it keeping track of just normal weekly, quarterly, yearly things, right? Like, what do you need to manage? What projects and offers, services, clients, like, what are you trying to manage in there? Start thinking about those. What are the primary tasks? And if you're like, I'm not really sure exactly what I need to put in there, start with the things that you do on a recurring basis, okay? And set up I'm getting ahead of myself here, but start with the reoccurring things, right? The things you need to do on a routine basis. All right. And also be thinking about, how do you track deadlines and priorities? Okay. This is a great space to track deadlines and priorities. Okay. You can easily, especially if you have a team or there's just more than you that is working on all these things, and especially if it's just you, which means there's not as much outside accountability, right? So how are you tracking deadlines and priorities? Start thinking about that. Also think about, what kind of reporting and analytics do you require? Do you need to like track time? Do you need to see like an activity feed, right? Of like, how long has this task been here? Who's interacted with it? What changes have been done? Those types of things. I absolutely love it for different reporting aspects and analytics, right? And do you have a team involved, right? Do you need a team involved? Do you intend to have a team involved? So many different things, right? Or is it just like you and one other person? Doesn't matter. It works for you if you're solo, works for you if you have a team of 10, it works for you if you have a team of 100, obviously the ClickUp plans will expand with you. Okay. And so then I also want you, after you've identified your core needs that you need ClickUp for, which those 4 questions were, what are the primary tasks and projects you need to manage? How do you track deadlines and priorities? And what kind of reporting and analytics do you require? And this final one is, do you have a team involved, or do you foresee you having a team involved in the future? Okay. And so those are the 4 questions I want you to ask yourself. Then the second, like, larger thing here is that you have to choose the right workspace structure. Okay. And this is where understanding that hierarchy, which is what a lot of people weren't understanding, including myself in the beginning, this is actually going to help you tenfold. So watching that YouTube video, I'm also going to give you a quick rundown here in just a second, but you need to understand the hierarchy. Okay. And so the actual things that you're going to need to do when choosing the right workspace structure is that you get to decide on the workspace structure that aligns with your business organization. Right? And that's like kind of an ambiguous statement, really, but that's what you're going to be doing. And you're going to create spaces, folders, and lists to categorize your tasks and your projects. Okay. And so if you're someone that thinks ClickUp is too complex because of these reasons, right? Steep learning curve, right? I want you to start with the basics of the hierarchy. If you think it's complex because you're not tech savvy, I want you to watch tutorials to get expert support. And I'm here for you. Okay. If you think ClickUp is complex because it has a complex layout, right? I want you to understand the core needs of what you need to use it for. Okay, that's where you need to start. If you think ClickUp is too complex because there's too many customization options, I want you to start small and add in more customization as you go, right? I want you to start with the basics of things, and then the more you get used to it, the easier it can grow, okay? And if you think ClickUp is too complex because you think it's only for businesses of larger size, you don't feel like you can utilize it, It is absolutely for solopreneurs and small teams alike. And the best part is that it can grow with you when you do have a larger team. Okay, if you decide to expand beyond just you. And so I encourage you to start with these basics, right? I want you to watch some tutorials, ask some questions, and more importantly, identify these core needs that you need ClickUp for, right? So understanding that hierarchy and identifying those core needs that you need ClickUp for, that is going to, and not even what you need ClickUp for, a project management. What do you need to track? What are these needs? What do you need to keep track of, right? That's what I'm saying. I want you to identify what those things that you need to keep track of are. All right. And so you can use ClickUp as a solopreneur and eventually scale it to having a team. It's much easier to start with a platform, right? If you're thinking about it, it's much easier to start with a platform that you can scale with instead of having to move everything when you scale and learn something new, right? Because this platform that maybe you're using doesn't grow with you, right? But I don't want you to have to learn something new again, right? When you have to move to a software that works well for teams. So you can make ClickUp as complex or as simple as you want, even if you're not tech savvy. Okay? So if you're like, okay, I'm still kind of on the fence, no problem at all. All right? I'm going to tell you, it took me another 30-some project management systems to test before I was like, okay, I'll just go all in. But you don't really have time for that, do you? You don't. That was kind of my job. Right? There's no ulterior motive to trying other project management systems. I want to make sure I was recommending one that would be very good for a solopreneur, for organization, information storage, right? To create it as a central hub for business, but also for teams, right? So I would love for you to just skip the 30-some project management tools that, you might have a long list that I tested. Okay, just skip those. And let's just get your ClickUp set up with your core needs met. Okay, complete with you understanding how your workspace works for you and your goals, because let's just be honest, most of us are far too busy serving our clients to just sit down for hours watching tutorials and maybe implementing it. And that's if you can actually find the right tutorials to answer the specific questions that you want, what you're specifically struggling with. And when we work together, all right, inside my ClickUp Power Up Intensive, that's actually completely custom to you, right? I am the built-in tutorial, okay? Your core needs for your business and your learning style, okay? It's all built in. And the clients that have had this intensive with me have walked away with exactly what they needed, and they have their workspaces set up in record time, okay? So if you don't have time, we can carve out a little bit of time in 1 week, essentially, and we're going to get it all set up, completely custom to you. We're going to take care of you. We're going to make sure you understand it, right? And then I'm still going to be there when you are actually using it, and we can tweak things if needed, right? And so are you ready to not only save time with this actual intensive, but also save time by using ClickUp as the central hub for business? Okay, and if you're not really sure what I'm saying here by your central hub for business, we're going to be talking about it later in this podcast series, okay? And so essentially everything in one place for your organization, or everything links into it, okay? That's like the quick little sentence, okay? But next week, I'm sharing my top 3 time savers in ClickUp, all right? That is what I want. I want you to save time. And so I'm going to be sharing my top 3 time savers, the ones that I love. So make sure you subscribe to this podcast if you haven't subscribed yet so you don't miss any of these. And I'm going to see you next week.